Wings of Fire, the Fanmade audiobook, Chapter 4. Clay had never really believed the legends about Nightwings. Secretive dragons who could read minds, a hidden kingdom that no one could find, a mystery queen, the power to see the future, the way they appeared from darkness to deliver prophecies that shaped the world. It all sounded like fairy tales, about as likely as a world ruled by scavengers instead of humans. And scavengers instead of dragons. Besides, Clay knew Starflight, and Starflight was many things. Annoying, long-winded, smart, too serious, but he had no magical power, and he was never, ever scary. But the next evening, when a dragon flat as a bottomless pit loomed out of the shadows of the entrance tunnel, Clay felt all the rumors about Nightwings come crashing to his head like a collapsing rock wall. Marcia was even bigger than Kestrel, and 5 times more terrifying. He spread his jagged bat-like wings and peered down at the dragonets lined up in front of him. He had silver scales like stars on the underside of his wings, like Starflight did, but on him they seemed to glitter from a great distance and cast a cold glow. He looked like he could easily rip off each of their heads in one bite. He looked like he already hated the 5 dragonets, which wasn't what Clay had expected at all. Were they all such a disappointment already? Maybe Marcia was reading their minds and knew how confused they were about the prophecy. Or maybe he was seeing the future and his visions were all failure, failure, failure. Clay could see Sunny trembling at his side. He felt the same way, petrified in place, as if his scales were being slowly peeled off, one by one. Well then, giant Nightwing inspected them. On his other side, Starflight was more still than Clay had ever seen him. Starflight always froze when he was frightened. It was as he hoped. By not moving, he'd disappear from the view, and the danger would pass right by. Clay couldn't see Glory, but he knew when Marcia saw her, the huge black dragon stared down at the rainbow dragonet for a small eternity. His snout twitched with ripples of disgust. A forked black tongue slipped over his teeth. Clay wished his own wings were as fast as the cabin itself so he could hide his friend from Marcia. He wished his talons were as huge as stalagmites, as sharp as the rock shards. He wished he were big enough to be brave and brave enough to be big. He never wanted anything so much as he wanted to protect his friends from this tall, hissing, scornful, immensely dangerous dragon. He really, really hoped Marcia wasn't reading his mind right then. Think about cows, think about cows, think about delicious fat cows. Marcia pivoted his head slowly to glare down at Kestrel. He lifted one long claw and pointed at Glory. "What is that?" he said, his voice loaded with enough venom to kill 20 dragons in mid-flight. Starflight took a step back, and Clay saw Glory. She was sitting on her haunches with her long tail curled over her talons. Trails of violet and gold chased each other through her scales. Only shades of flame around her feathery Trails of violet and gold chased each other through her scales. Only the shades of flame around her feathery ears hinted that she was upset. She stared calmly back at Marcia. "There was an accident," Kestrel said. "We lost the skywing egg, so we had to get another one somewhere." "From the rainwings," Marcia interrupted gaspingly. "It was his idea," Kestrel smiled, whipping her tail towards the web. "He brought the egg here." "At least we have 5 dragonets," Webb said. "That's what matters." Marcia peered down at the long black snout at Glory. He shifted his eyes to Sunny, who let out a tiny squeak and sank lower towards the ground. "More like 4.5. Are you supposed to be the sandwing? Don't you eat? What's wrong with you?" There was a long, terrible pause while Sunny tried to squeak out an answer. "She does. She eats fine, as much as anyone. It's not her fault he's small, Starflight chimed in Clay's surprise. She's a good fighter, Clay said, and so is Glory. Stop talking now, Marcia said, and the silence dropped over them. His sharp, menacing gaze landed on Clay. Think about cows, think about cows, think about cows, think about cows! The tall Nightwing turned to the three guardians. Something has gone very wrong here. Yes, Tsunami burst in again. It has, and I can tell you what. We've been treated like prisoners. We've never been outside this cave, not once, and we know about this world and we're supposed to save is what we've learned in scrolls. We're supposed to be the most important dragoness in the world, but those three treat us like blind salamanders. Clay couldn't believe it. She wasn't scared of Marcia too. Tsunami, hold your tongue, Doom snapped. I will not, she cried. Please get us out of here, said Marcia. Take us away with you. Please don't, Clay thought. I mean, think about cows, think about cows. Now that he'd seen the Nightwing, he'd rather stay trapped here. Ungrateful lizard, Still growled. Without warning, Marcia lunged at Tsunami, his teeth flashed as bright as white lightning, darting towards her neck. It is really like the night sky falling on you, White thought, when he discovered he was moving too. He flung himself at the Nightwing's huge, rigid back before he could think about what he was doing. Before he could even think of his claws sank into the small gaps between the shifting black scales, scrambling for a hold. His tail thrashed as he tried to balance. Below him, he saw Tsunami rolling away and spinning to fight back. Her blue talons slashed at Marcia's nose and underbelly. Clay tried frantically to remember his battle training. He flattened himself along the big dragon's back, sank his neck forward, and bit down as hard as he could. Ow! His jaw exploded with flame, and he reared back. On the black-on-black scale, it was impossible to find a weak spot. Marcia jumped away from Tsunami and shook his whole body violently. Clay lost his grip and went flying through the air. He landed with a jarring thud, sliding halfway into the river. As he staggered to his feet, he saw Tsunami and Marcia facing each other with battle positions. Marcia made a grinding noise deep in his throat. He stepped back and swung his tail around and spewed. Clinging to Marcia's tail, her teeth firmly planted the bundle of spots at the near end. Clinging to Marcia's tail, her teeth firmly planted in the bundle of spot near the end. Was Sunny. I wish he'd remember about that spot with every dragon head, no matter what tribe it was from. Ha! Marcia rumbled. That's a surprise. He pried Sunny loose with his talons. As if it was just a tiny blood-sucking insect. This one will do, Marcia said, pointing at Tsunami. None of the big dragons had moved as he attacked all their charges. Neither had Glory and neither had Starflight. Clay staggered up beside his Nightwing friend, who was doing an excellent imitation of a stalagmite. Starflight lowered his head and avoided Clay's eyes. And that one will do, Marcia nodded at Clay. Kestrel snorted. The Nightwing approved of him? Clay was so confused. It wasn't as if Clay's attack had done any good, even when Clay was defending his friend. Apparently he couldn't get angry to drag out of his inner monster. Could Marcia hear everyone thinking about how Clay was going to let them all down? This one. Marcia studied Sunny, from her harmless tail to her weirdly golden scales and the moss green eyes. We'll have to see. You followed the prophecy, Ian insisted. She wasn't in the cleft of eggs. I found her egg alone, buried in the desert, just like the prophecy said. The Guardians never talked about where they got the dragon egg. Sunny stared at Dean hopefully, but he fell silent under Marcia's dark eyes. As for you, I assume you used your Nightwing powers to figure out I wasn't going to harm the ceiling. Perhaps you even had a vision of my visit today. No doubt you already know that I'm going to take you to the next cabin for a private conversation. Clay shuddered. Private conversation with Marcy sounded like as much fun as having his ears roasted. He did not envy Starflight as the two nightwings flitted towards the study room. Marcia paused in the archway and looked back at the guardians. We'll talk about her later. She didn't look at Lori, but everyone else did. She flickered her ears and lifted her chin in a little higher as Marcia's footsteps faded away into the tunnel. What does that mean? Clay worried. What was there to talk about? Stupid sealing! Kestrel shot across the cave and struck Tsunami's snout. Complaining to the first strange dragon you see, trying to make us look bad, whining about your life after all we've given up for you. Well, if he hates us too, why don't you just let us go? This is for your safety, This is for your safety, Webbs injected. His voice was gentler than Kestrel's, but Clay could tell he was angry the way his blue-green tail lashed on the floor. That's what all this is for. The towns of peace need you to survive as long enough to fulfill the prophecy. You have no idea how many dragons would love to get your claws on you right now. Or what they do if they did. Well, our job is to keep you alive, Kestrel said, or else I had strangled you myself a long time ago. Great, Tsunami said. Well, it's been a terrific life, thank you. Thanks very much. Kestrel made the hissing fire is coming noise. Clay grabbed Tsunami's tail and tugged her back towards the river. We are grateful, Tsunami said, jumping in front of Kestrel, who stood back on her back legs, not even half the red dragon's size. The golden ears twitched. We'd much rather be alive than not alive. We're glad you keep us like that. We really, really are. Come on, Webb said. He further Kestrel and Jean towards their cave. We need to talk. Yeah, he has something to say. Kestrel grumbled as three of them climbed into the broken stalagmites. Kestrel threw herself onto the river and sank to the bottom of in a stream of Kestrel threw herself into the river and sank to the bottom of a stream of furious bubbles, where she crawled up to her talons over her head. It was quite quiet in the cave. Sunny and Clay exchanged glances and then looked at Lori. The rainbow was sitting in the same spot, with her tail neatly curled around her feet. She yawned. Clay wished he could ever be that calm. As if nothing bothered her at all. Are you alright? Clay asked. He came around and sat in front of her, studying her face. Sunny sidled beside Glory, brushing her violet wings with her own smaller gold ones. Of course, Glory said. I mean, I knew that was gonna happen. I'm not like the miners have been talking about how awesome I am the whole time. But you are, Glory said. Glory tilted her head at him. Awesome, he insisted. They just don't see. They see a rain wing, she said with a shrug. I don't care. It's their own fault for bringing me here. Why didn't you fight Marcia when we did? Sunny said. Maybe he'd know how brave and fierce you are. Why bother? It was obviously a test and they already failed. A splotch of sky blue scales on her back pulsed, and the color of magenta spread across her scales, eating up the purple and gold. You don't care what the prophecy says or what Marcia thinks, Clay said stoutly. You're a fifth dragonette and we don't want anyone else. Glory gave him a rueful look. That's sweet. She yawned again. I'm gonna take a nap. Now? Is that a good idea? Glory fell asleep every day, usually after lunch for a couple of hours, but Clay expected her to stay awake while Marcia was around. He knew he wouldn't want the big dark dragon to catch him sleeping. He glanced at the tunnel of his study room, wondering uneasily how far the Nightwing's telepathy reached, and whether he could read Clay's mind and look the rock. I'm tired, Glory snapped. And they all think I'm lazy anyway. Nothing I can do is to change that. Lady Glory wasn't lazy. She worked harder than everyone at battle training and learning the Dragon's War history, even though none of the big dragons even noticed. She just had to nap in the middle of the day, probably for some brainwave reason. Although it did seem to help, Glory was just as prickly and tired after napping as she was before. Wake me if anything exciting happens, Glory said. And make sure it's actually exciting, not Sunny exciting. She gave Sunny a friendly nudge with her snout, and then the sound squeaked in protest. I don't think everything is exciting, Sunny flapped her wings. But you guys don't think, but you guys don't think enough things are exciting. Think of it this way, Laura said. Time to leave the caves and to fulfill the prophecy. Exciting. We caught another weird-looking white crab in the river. Not exciting. Got it? She poked Sunny again, uncurled her tail, now fully blue, and slipped inside her sleeping cave. Sunny blinked back quiet. I know, she said. That last crab was really weird-looking. It was, wasn't it? She said. I wouldn't have minded if you woken me up to see it, Closet added kindly. Well, good. I know, that's why you got to eat half of it instead of anyone else. She headed for her favorite stalagmite and started to climb it, hooking her claws into the holes that dotted the bulbous shape. Sunny clambered up the rocks beside her. Hey, Sunny, she said, what would you think of running away? She paused and looked at him with shocked green eyes. You mean you're leaving the caves? Without our guardians? Without our guardians? No, oh no, we couldn't. We have to do whatever the prophecy says. Do we? I mean, we do, she said quickly as she nearly lost her grip on the stalagmite in surprise. But if the town peeps don't understand the prophecy and any better than we do, maybe we just need to get out and stuff the world our own way. Sunny settled on top of the stalagmite and coiled her tail around it, balancing on her back legs. She reached up towards the stalagmites that were poking sharply down from the top of the cave. I don't think that's a good idea, Clay. If we just follow the prophecy, everything will be alright. Her claws batted the tip of his lower stalagmite, but she was still too small to reach it. She sat back down with a furious, frustrated sigh. Clay glanced at the small, soft blue glow coming from Glory's cave. Follow the prophecy. But he couldn't help thinking that a real prophecy would have included Glory. What if the prophecy was wrong? What if the prophecy was wrong? And that's the end of the chapter. See you in the next video, and please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that, and bye.